Clarence Miller in the center there. Richard Bell on the right there. It was. They had a speaker nearly every time they had a luncheon, I believe. I don't know who was on duty this time. There's Joe Powell Shelton on the right. Looking back behind over there, we saw Wilson Rayburn. Now we go to Modernistic Beauty Shop. Owner was Mrs. Bobby Van Hooser Dedman. Here's Miss Bobby. She too had a fleet of operators right back at the old First National Bank building on the corner there. Here Miss Bobby works on the little Burroughs girl. There's Miss Mary Lewis shampooing Ms. Fred Dedman. Here is Mrs. Cookie Womack, Ramona, I guess, to you, with a client. Here's Ma Riling looking at herself in the mirror. Mrs. Riling, who was a welcome in fame. Now we go out on the street to view a little of the traffic which is zipping around here. I believe old 41 came around through here at that point in time, and I think 1952 saw the 4-lane swing in up Jail Hill and across town. Notice the zip with which people are walking. Either this film is speeded up here or it must have been a cold day. There's a certain spring in their step and the haste with which they're moving about. We're seeing some signs up and down the street, Locks, the Lyric, others. Now we move to Earl's Food Market on the side of the square across the street from the old post office. Jess Earls and Sue, his wife, along with Mason Earls, operated this outlet. It was a busy place. At this point in time, 1990, I don't believe that we have a grocery on the square. In the afternoon, when people got off from work, these aisles were filled with shoppers, picking out their favorites out of these well-stocked shelves. Here we see Mason Earls wrapping up a meat delivery there. There's Jess Earls. Sue on the right in front here. City Hall was on the north side of the square in those days. Now, if you'll notice right carefully here, you'll see that this is not just a practice run for the benefit of the photographer who was making this film. This is an actual fire call. And here they go. Manchester, even then and always has had, still has, a very efficient fire department. They like to get them early and snuff them out quickly. If you'll notice the progress of this year in these next few frames, you'll see that they do just that very thing. We see smoke coming out of this roof about a block off the square. I believe this house is no longer there, maybe. And in short order, they have whatever was burning in there put out. Now we're going to line these boys up here in a minute and see who they were. We're going to have here we are. Here's Chief Kendrick and Stacy, and here's the volunteer fireman here for a group picture just after this fire, I believe. A very efficient group of men. Grady Harris, Chief Stacy. Now let's move to the corner of what is now Henley's department store, this 1990, and this was Red's department store, I believe, there in that building. Mr. G. Everett Red. There's Benny St. John, a customer, I believe, in there. There's Mr. Red himself. Here's Edna Ingram on the left, and by her there is Margaret Yearwood. They were clerks for Mr. Red. Austin Taylor is fitting a customer with a coat, looks like here. Margaret Yearwood on the left, about to make a sale. Austin sends away another satisfied customer. My wife here fitted shoes for Mr. Red in this department store. They had everything from shoelaces to shoes. Just a general variety of merchandise. Austin again. Now we move out on Woodland Street to Milton Jones, what is now Milton Jones Tire Service. This was J.D. Jones Gulf Station. Milton, I believe, was the principal mover of that effort, and along with Harry Comer, his brother-in-law. I believe that little Studebaker sitting there being serviced could have been mine. I don't know. But I had a 51 Studebaker after I got rid of that 49 Ford. Now they have tires almost exclusively over there in alignment, but at this point in time they did just about everything there. Here's Alonzo Walker, I believe, washing off a vehicle for somebody. Here's Milton himself, Harry coming up by him there. We move now to the Manchester Times building on the northwest side of the square. Probably you might call it the west side. Mr. Hugh Doak, who was also a postmaster at one point in time, owned and operated the Manchester Times. Here is Yvonne Scott, who was a technician in putting together pictures and making photos that went in the paper. We'll see a linotype operator here. There was a flash of Mr. Doak there. There he comes. There comes Mr. Doak in the center of the picture. On his right there is Clark Miller Willis, his nephew, I believe. Here's Orville Browning back at the press turning out an issue of the Manchester Times. Here's Martha Brothers and Ms. Doak sitting over here. Here's Evelyn Banks. They worked for the Times. There's Ms. Doak. Mr. Doak operated the photography business too. Now we're going to pan around the square again. There was Earl's Food Market, City Hall, going down back, looking at the courthouse here again, coming around by the Ford Agency over there at the Pure Oil Station, the Masonic Building, the Times Building, and then we had at this point in time a tractor service place on that corner where Rayburn's shoe shop is now. The Manchester Funeral Home in those days was on Woodland Street, opposite where the East Main Church of Christ is located right now. Here's Fred Edmund standing and Frank with his back to the camera, both still active in the business. Frank more or less retired, and Fred is very active in the business today. Here's Frank, the young lady that helps them there, and Fred. They had a good fleet of ambulances. Here we are, I have just received a call and we're going out on an ambulance call. Now we have the ambulance service that the county operated. Manchester Funeral Home. They now are across the street from East Main Church of Christ on East Main. Here is the building near the Manchester Times where we have international harvesters. Here's Mr. Prater, I believe, and the office girl working on the problem, Clyde Swaniger. They had appliances too, refrigerators, coal boxes and whatnot. Had good mechanics. There on the left is Lewis Haggard. For many years. This is Mr. Love, I believe. They're working on an engine. Farmall, I believe, is the logo on the side of that tractor. They were the good tractors of the day. They serviced them here, repaired them, had a fleet of trucks that they sold. Let's move over to Central High School. We'll start by watching the students pour out here with their books. Apparently they're going home. This must be not a recess, but just the end of the day. Notice the happy faces here. Some of those you will remember from family resemblances. These people are scattered far and wide. The faces are happier than they were about 4 or 5 years before this, because then the Great War was still winding down. And when we have these all emptied out here, we will see the faculty as it comes forth at the ending of this frame that shows Central High School. Some of these kids you'll know. I say kids with a great deal of respect. They're well up in years now. I graduated in 1935 over there. There's Johnny Henley came out there in the middle of the scene. Now we're going to see the faculty come forth here. Coolidge Holt, Roy McDuffie, Mr. Gerald, Sweetie Johnson, Ms. Smart, and last there, Mr. Joe F. Patch, who is my neighbor. We see a group of men standing here passing the time of day. In 1951, it was a little bit more leisurely around the square than it is today. Here's Charles Yoakley. He had an appliance store just off the square on East Main. There's Catherine Tate Yoakley, his wife, with a customer. Wade West over with the big brim hat in the background. Many of you may have known Mr. West. Charles sold and delivered and serviced his equipment. We'll see a delivery being made here from his store in just a minute. Here we go. He has sold somebody a Thor washer. We move over to 117 East 4th Street, the Church of Christ building, a beautiful building built 100 years ago this year. This is now housing the Coffee County Manchester Tullahoma Museum, and the people of this congregation moved to the corner of Main and Woodland and built a new church, a larger institution. Here we have a showing of a little church around it where the Methodists are. This is the old Presbyterian church near the city cemetery. The bell tower is not on there anymore. The church is still standing, not being used. Now we have Bob Walker, Bob's Place, a clearinghouse for all the excitement that has come about during the day. People met here for quickie lunches, for fountain service, ice cream, and it was adjacent to the Lyric Theater, which made it a very handy place to for meetings and to stop by on the way to the show. Bob and Miss Gladys operated this unit for many years. Here's Mr. Ridley Hickerson and Miss Flora, his daughter, on the right there, customers. And here's a shot of the Lyric Theater. We're going to see some of the people moving in for the show here in just a moment. I remember through the years we had several managers. Here's James Parsley, who worked for the show, was a projectionist there in those days. Here's one of the managers at this point in time placing some placards out front of upcoming attractions. He's opening up the box office here, and we see others going in. Here's Mr. Roy Baltimore back here, and last Mr. Fred Gillum there going in for the show. Now we're back out here on East Main, and we're approaching the town square, intersecting with Spring Street here where this station wagon's coming across. And we continue through the light there on to West Main Junction, and down Irwin Street, looking down Irwin Street to the city jail, county jail, around the square, back to the post office building. And that's the end of this film of the 1951 production.